Now, for the Hansard record, could you each please state your full name and the capacity in which you appear today?
Rohan is the Chief Executive Officer of Marand.
Tony Quick, the Chairman of Quickstep Holdings.
Koning, Executive General Manager of Business Development, Quickstep Holdings.
Karen Stanton, Heat Treatment Australia, Director and Owner.
Thank you. Now, would someone or all of you like to make a very brief opening statement?
I can start. On behalf of Marand, we're a small, we're an SME based in Melbourne, Victoria, privately owned, about 250 employees, both approximately 50-50 between blue collar and white collar. We're a business that up until 15 years ago was almost entirely in the automotive industry. And today we do less than 0.5% in the automotive industry, and we're about 5 or 6 times the size we used to be. We've been involved continually on the F-35 program since 2002, so we've never been without a contract or a purchase order in place since 2002. In that time we've exported production tooling all around the world. We've solved a lot of problems for Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, Terma, Kongsberg in Europe. We've designed and developed the F-35 installation removal trailer, which is probably the most complex piece of mechanical support equipment on the program. Has in excess of 4,500 manufactured components on each trailer that we ship, of which we've shipped 50 so far. We also have a...
Sorry, Mr. Stock, are they the ones that are worth $1 million each?
In that ballpark.
Thank you.
In that ballpark. We've also have a long-term agreement for the supply of 722 vertical tails to the program, of which we commenced shipping a few years ago. We shipped our 10th of those this week, so we're well into the production of those vertical tails. Maybe I'll hand over to Tony now, who's an example of our supply chain. We have in excess of 100 suppliers in the country who deliver us parts, and fortunately the Quickstep company will be delivering us composite parts for our vertical tails.
If I could just start with a couple of words about myself. I've had 30 years in the aerospace and defence industry, most of which in composites. In year 2000 I emigrated to Australia and set up an aerospace design and engineering organisation. We were actually the first company to win contract on JSF in 2002 and delivered 1 million man-hours of design for the Joint Strike Fighter over a period of time, and actually designed 10% by part number of the aircraft. In 2013 I joined the board of Quickstep as chairman. My name has got nothing to do with the company. The company is all about a quick and disruptive innovative curing technology in composite manufacturing. We started as a small R&D organisation in Perth, had no credibility. In order to exploit that territory, that credibility and that technology, with the marketing assistance of the Australian government, we joined the JSF program to manufacture composite parts. We then relocated to Bankstown, where we took advantage of the resources and facilities vacated by Boeing as they consolidated their operation in Melbourne. We progressed through a difficult journey with significant financial investment supported by our shareholders, EFIC, and the JSF partners and the Australian government. Quickstep is now a credible manufacturer of the most advanced and demanding aerospace composite parts, delivering to cost, quality and schedule. As a result of that success, we've won work on C-130J program through global competition. Other work is under discussion at the moment. The JSF program has also provided credibility for our technology, with work starting to flow in aerospace and automotive, with a recently announced contract with Ford. We've got a turnover of 40 million, over 160 staff in Australia, with steady growth assured, with an order book of over $100 million and long-term agreements valued at $700 million US, all built on our initial JSF success.
Yeah. Okay, so Heat Treatment Australia is the name of my company, and I'm an owner and director there. We do all of the thermal processing for the F-35 program for other industry partners. So, for example, Marand is one of our customers. As I wrote in our submission, HTA has supplied to the program for over 5 years now. and the benefits have been quite significant. Innovation in our business, new capacity and capability, and expansion in growth in terms of physical and revenue streams. Innovation, I'll talk to that for a moment. So we've been able to partner with Lockheed and develop some new innovative hardening techniques for the landing gear for the F-35. We've also worked to develop an aluminium vacuum brazing process that is now used as a critical component for the chassis, avionics chassis for the F-35. Our new manufacturing capabilities, again partnering with the Australian Government and with Lockheed, we brought some new processing capabilities into the country that didn't exist prior to this program. So we've introduced and are introducing titanium processing, carburising, neutral hardening and some alloy steel processing, which, as I said, to aerospace level wasn't previously available in Australia. The expansion and growth at our facilities has been quite significant over the last 10 years. We've had probably 3 expansions in Brisbane in that time, and we're currently breaking ground for a further expansion to develop a dedicated aerospace facility. We've had growth at our Melbourne facility as well as a result of the program. And to date, no other thermal processing company in Australia is able to supply to the F-35 program because they don't have the quality accreditations and the processes that we have. Just one last comment about the people we employ, and I think Rohan mentioned that, is that we employ about 60 people across our site. All of those people have families, and without this program, we probably wouldn't be employing that number of people these days. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a number of quick questions before we go to other senators. So what do you see the future opportunities for your respective businesses, if you wanted to make a comment, as it goes towards full production and sustainment? What does that mean for your businesses? Start with Ms. Stanton.
Obviously, it's another growth opportunity for us. The expansion that's going on in Brisbane at the moment is directly associated with the F-35 ramp. The numbers that we expect to come through in the coming years are quite significant, more than doubling where we're at now. So it means more equipment, more furnaces, more employees, more skilled staff.
Mr. Quick?
We're currently turning over on JSF about 20 million. Over the next 3 to 4 years, we expect that to grow to 60 million. And we, at that point in time, will have something like 200 people working dedicated on JSF. Given the length of those programs, we should be working at that level for about another 15 to 20 years after that.
Okay. Mr. Stocker?
We've completed about $250 million so far. We have agreements in place and contracts that take us up to around the $1 billion mark, and we would expect with other opportunities that we should end up somewhere in the order of $1.5 billion by the end of the program.
Okay. And just trying to get a handle on the raw number of jobs currently in your respective firms and the projection of growth, you think we said
So we're
60?
at about 60, 65 at the moment.
We're at 160 and we'll probably be looking at something around about 300.
We've probably got about 110 full-time on F-35, and the company's about 250.
Okay. So the technology transfer and the experience that your companies are getting, does that apply to other areas of your business? I mean, does it make you better suited to pick up other opportunities?
Absolutely. We've done an enormous amount of tech transfer and training on the program in the development of our ground support equipment. We've worked with Lockheed Martin, a lot of design for lean training itself, manufacturing training. We went through a very extensive process with BAE Systems over the last 5 years for our vertical tail operation, which give us capabilities that we don't currently have in the country as a whole, that now we have in the country to be used on other programs, some of our capabilities we've built.
So would you say your companies are participating in the global supply chain, or are you constrained in any way?
Categorically, absolutely.
So these opportunities will exist in other projects similar to the JSF?
We are already seeing that. I mean, we picked up work on the C-130J program as a result of the credibility created from JSF.
Okay.
Likewise with us, we have work on Boeing programs that I'm sure and no doubt the F-35 work has contributed to that.
I think that we're all in the same situation, is that we're here for the F-35, but it was only the start, pretty much for all of our businesses in aerospace and defence.
Do you have any advice for the on the Australian defence industry policy? Could we be doing it better, or is this an example of what we are doing right?
I think this is an example of what we're doing right, and the current defence industry policy statement, I think, enshrines the lessons learned out of all of our experience on the JSF programme.
Is there any lessons that the Australian Department of Defence could learn from this F-35 program in your organisation's experience? Is there any advice that you've fed back in that's either been taken or...?
I think there's been some comments earlier about concurrency, and I think from an industrial point of view, there's been some real benefits to our organisation that this has been a concurrent involvement from the Australian government since 2002. We're involved in other areas of the global supply chain, but I've no doubt that being part of the journey from 2002, when there's not a fixed supply chain in place, when the program's starting, has given industry a better head start.
I think the other thing is that as a result of joining at the SDD phase, we were able to participate in those very early design and development stages, and that has created a great deal of expertise. I mean, I had in my previous life 250 aerospace engineers, Australians, working on the JSF design.
So how would you characterise this experience? Has it all been 100% positive without any negatives, or just a learning experience?
It has been an extremely painful learning process, dragging us from where we were to genuine world standard.
And it's paying off?
It's more than paying off.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Senator Fawcett.
We've had a number of inquiries looking at defence procurement where Treasury and Finance in particular refuse to consider what's known as spillover effects. What you're describing to me sounds like spillover effects where you have new innovation giving you productive capacity, new technologies, new skills. Are you able to quantify as a function of your turnover what percentage of that turnover is now work that you have got because of your JSF involvement, or is it the majority of it still directly related to this program? You know, is it 10%, 20%? What kind of growth have you seen on the back of the IP, the productive capacity that you've gained?
So from my experience, I could probably turn that question around. It's probably more a case of that we're still in business. If we had not been in this space, have been developed and had all this time to develop our business, I doubt that we would actually be around. So everything that we do now, I think, is a result of us participating early on in this program. So our revenue turnover of 10 million plus probably wouldn't exist without being in this space.
Sure. The heart of the question, though, is that when defence comes to government and looks at value for money, the argument from finance is that you can't plan on future unearned revenue. The people who support the spillover model say, well, in actual fact, for high-tech programs, you can assume validly that there will be an increase in economic activity from businesses who've been involved with a high-tech defence project. And so what I'm seeking is not just the fact that you're here, and that's great, but can you quantify how much additional work you have outside the Joint Strike Fighter program? Because that goes to this question of what is that returning to the economy as part of our assessing value for money.
In numbers, I would say our business has tripled since we started this program. So from the dollar point that we're at back 7 or 8 years ago to the dollar point we are at now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that all the work that we're doing at the moment is directly or indirectly a result of JSF. JSF directly accounts for about a quarter of our turnover in the last year. So 3/4 of our turnover is spillover effect.
Okay. And your turnover is?
40 million last year. Now, okay. As JSF grows, without additional growth and fresh orders that we're not building into our current forecasts, then the JSF percentage will increase. But it's still going to be a significant amount of spillover.
And I would say a similar story to Tony. It's very difficult to completely draw the link between every other non-F-35 contract because other things have contributed along the way. But I would say our F-35 work, even if the very first F-35 contract was actually a consulting contract around automating factories. So we had engineers who went to Lockheed's Palmdale facility to help them understand how they might build the F-35 at rate. And that was due to our experience with basically designing and building automated factories for General Motors Holden in Adelaide, for Ford, for Toyota and for Boeing. Now that spread into work we did for Boeing, building a 787 facility for them, and now we're using those same people and the same types of capabilities to build automated facilities for Rio Tinto and BHP. So while it's tenuous to say there's a direct link there, it's the same people and the same capability year on year that actually helps us with those other customers.
Mm-hmm. Sure. In terms of the model in the JSF program, where my understanding is that countries got to bid for work, but you have to be competitive in terms of quality and cost. My understanding is that the composite parts that Quickstep produce are going to be on every JSF. Is that up for periodic review, or having won that contract, are you now basically able to demonstrate continuing improvements to productivity and effectiveness and retain that contract for the life of the program?
It's ours to lose. Providing we continue to demonstrate improvements, continuous improvement, competitiveness and quality and schedule adherence, then we're there for life.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thanks, Hugh.
Senator Conroy, do you have any questions? Senator Xenophon.
Just a couple of questions following on from Senator Fawcett's line of questioning. You've all outlined approximately what the JSF program means. How much work has each of your companies been promised with respect to the JSF in value terms? I think you've said, Mr. Quick, from 20 million to 60 million per annum, is that right?
That's the annual turnover growth. We have long-term agreements that are at 750 million US, so about $1 billion at today's rate of exchange.
Over what period of years?
Over the life of the JSF program.
Right, okay. Any others?
Agreement to around the $1 billion.
Right.
The prospects past.
And those promises for all of you are on track to be met?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. And can I just ask, in terms of the IP, how does that work? I mean, who owns, is Lockheed Martin would own the IP, and do you have any rights to use it more broadly?
If I start with the composite parts that Quickstep make, the IP to a composite panel or door is only useful for JSF. So we have no rights to make JSF parts for anybody other than the JSF program.
Can you use what you've learned to
the intellectual capital, the knowledge that we have learnt of composites manufacturing is applicable to everything that we do.
So they have flow-on effects in terms of other work that you do?
Yes. So the knowledge that we've got out of the JSF program is ours, and we will use it, and the training and support that we've had from the JSF partners to improve our manufacturing systems, our quality systems, is there to be used on all other programs.
So similarly,
Very
Mr.
similar.
Stocker?
Very similar.
So what you learn, you can use. You're not constrained. Do your IP agreements say anything about that?
In no way at all. It's our IP. We've never even been asked that question, to be honest.
That's great. So it means that there's flow-on effects. And who's involved in the auto sector? Is that you?
Yeah,
You all are, because things are looking pretty grim with the auto sector, with Ford's going by October. We're looking at General Motors Holden and Toyota by the end of 2017. To what extent will this help cushion job losses from the closure of auto manufacturing in this country?
So I've joined the company 12 months ago, coming out of the auto industry, and we've now set up a new automotive division in Warm Ponds in the Geelong region. Right. We've got 20 employees there today. Last year we had 0 in that division. We've got 2 projects, one with Ford, a second one doing the Talis Hawkeye vehicle, which is a range of composite parts. We'll have up to 50 people there in the next 18 months. So significant. We're picking up people out of the aerospace industry and out of the auto industry, and certainly in Geelong, a large number of people coming out of the Ford facility over the next 6 months. So it's been a major growth for us in terms of taking the technology and the capabilities that we've developed in aerospace and moving those across into the automotive division. We see some good opportunity for growth, not just here but also globally, taking the technology that we have and applying that to the auto sector.
Okay.
We have a similar experience. Our Melbourne site was set up based on an automotive contract. We no longer do no processing at all for automotive at our Melbourne site. It's defence and aerospace work.
But it's contingent on these contracts going ahead, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it's not just JSF, as we've all mentioned. We do processing on numerous platforms.
Sure.
We took over part of the Ford facility in Geelong, so we have about 30 employees in Geelong, which are, again, a similar mix of ex-automotive employees and aerospace. So we've tried to do our bit to soften the blow there, and we produce all sorts
Still
of...
be a blow, but at least...
Still be a big blow. It's our contribution to that. And we still do a little bit of automotive work there for them today.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I think someone in their contribution mentioned support from EFIC. Is there a lack of capital to further your interests in this area? I mean, should we get more support, or are you constrained?
Quickstep are an ASX listed company. We have just moved into cash generation and profitability. We've gone through a large period of time of investment from our various shareholders. We received a 10 million EFIC facility to help with the capitalisation of our activities under JSF, and that was absolutely invaluable.
We've had similar experiences with EFIC as well. They've supported our process. Whilst the banks are sympathetic to our cause, they're not necessarily forthcoming with the dollars to support a program which, the contracts are unknown and we can't quantify. So EFIC have been invaluable.
So there is financing available.
We had support offered from EFIC but didn't use it. It was a more expensive way for us to do it than using retained earnings and bank facilities and what have you. That said, we have had support from some state government support and also some support from the federal government via the SADI program and the JSF division program. So between that and our own reinvestment, we've been able to make it happen.
Thank you. Senator Wilson.
Yeah, just sorry I missed your opening statement. I had to step out to the loo. Could I get an idea? I understand the various companies you've been providing components and manufacturing parts since 2002, since the early stages of the program. How did it work in terms of costs? What did you quote that you could produce certain parts within certain costs, and with cost overruns, if you had them? That may not have been the case for your components. How did it work with the key contractor Lockheed Martin?
Perhaps I'll start with that, although it would be a long answer if I went through every...
okay, if you could just give us a rough overview.
In the three basic areas, our tooling work has always been very competitive, so traditional RFQ type process. We've supplied BAE Systems in the UK, where I believe the largest supplier of tooling on the program. Lockheed Martin's Palmdale site, where we started in competition with 10 companies and we won 90% of the work because of our value to the program. And then we had our vertical tail work, which has come up over the last 4 or 5 years. With all of the work, it's always, well, other than a few very, very small contracts, which have been trade studies, I'm talking probably in the 1 to 2% of our total volume. It's all been fixed price work. So some of them we've had significant overruns on, and that's just for us to grin and bear. Others, we've achieved what we set out to achieve in the first place.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
And ours has been more around should cost. So what's happened is that our customers, Lockheed or Northrop, have actually said, this is the target cost.
Yep.
And then they've helped us to actually understand how those costs are built up and how they're achieved. It's then been our commercial decision whether or not we will actually bid at that price. Having taken it at that agreed negotiated price, if we've got overruns, then that's down to us.
Were those costs realistic in the ones that they set you?
Yes, because we had the dialogue. I mean, our initial inspections of those prices, no, they weren't realistic. but because we didn't understand how they were going to be made, or it might be that we might have come in at a lower price because we didn't actually understand all of the steps that we needed to work through. But through that open dialogue, we were educated into what the cost should be. Now, have we achieved some overruns in those costs? Absolutely. That's inevitable at an early stage of a production programme. The fact that we will be producing 3,000 ship sets, then we're driving our costs down the learning curve, and in future years we'll make larger margins, and we're now seeing a, shall we say, a reasonable return. I need to be careful because my customers are sitting behind me.
Sure, but the model, the simple, like any economic model, is the larger your volumes, the lower your unit cost as you leverage into the program.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the JSF program, is joining for those large volumes. That gives us the opportunity to drive the cost down, to be economic, and it drives us to be globally competitive across what we do as a generality. So it therefore means that we can actually be competitive on non-JSF work that we're bidding for.
Okay. How about Mr. de Koning? How about you? Did you...
I'm
fixed price contracts
I'm
as well?
with Quickstep, so...
right, sorry. Okay,
so, yeah,
I missed that. Ms Stanton?
Yes, fixed price contracts. We decide the commercial value of the work, and then we provide, quotes and contracts based on that. What I can say about the process and the pricing for JSF is that it's highly visible. They share with us information on target pricing, where we need to be, how do we achieve that. So we're never sort of left in the dark. If we've got a quote in there, we understand where we're at and how we fit into the scope.
So it's fascinating evidence, and you guys probably have a much better understanding of the holistic putting this plan together. Why is it that Lockheed Martin have been 100% over budget? If they originally said it was going to be 40 million per unit, and we're now hopefully going to settle at 80 or 90, how did they so badly overestimate the initial cost of this program if you guys have been roughly on budget? Don't answer it if you don't want to, or if you don't know.
I think the simple thing is, one, we can't answer that because we don't see the totality. What we do see is a very high level of professionalism in terms of what we're doing. Now, the parts that we're manufacturing were those envisaged right at the first stage. As I said in my opening remarks, I was involved in 1 million man-hours of design work. The program evolved during that stage. The parts that we finished up designing were very different to the concepts that we originally started, because that's what happens in a development program. And I think that if you actually compare the JSF program with other major aerospace programs around the world, then you're looking at very similar cost overruns.
You may well have inadvertently answered that question.
I think I can only comment in terms of the volume statement, that I can only talk about our piece of the pie, and obviously volume is quite directly linked to the recurring price, and I imagine that is a reasonable part of the program's costs.
Okay.
Well, thank you all very much for your evidence here today, and what are we doing? Aren't we having these in? Okay. Thanks very much, and if you have taken any questions on notice, you can take an appropriate amount of time to respond to them. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We will now break for a lunch break.
All right. Yeah.
1:30. 1:30.